On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Beg to Differ by Prong. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. We don't have a 30-second period between the dumb shit we do and the cold open.
We have to suffer through it right away where everybody else gets to hear us
if we do something
stupid shit and go, oh, that was dumb, and then get over it.
If we do something really stupid, it's just immediate. This is the Bronze Metalist podcast. We're two professional broadcasters, supposedly. We like metal and we like to talk about it.
Yes,
today,
he's Kale, I'm OJ.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have names.
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
But
or you're Chad.
Yeah, or Marcus. Or who, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure Marcus was the goblin's name. We like metal. We like to talk about it today. We're talking about Beg to Differ by Prong, which is an album from a year that I forgot.
A year that you forgot?
A year that I forgot. I didn't exist.
Well, no, you didn't.
I knew what year it came out in, and now I can't remember.
I believe it was 1990.
1990, perhaps. Mm-hmm. I had it open on my phone.
That's seconds ago.
I'm a disaster right now for no particular reason.
It's fine. This is the day.
It's 1990.
Yeah, this is the day that you went on the air and talked about what was happening at the intersection of Broderick and Birdway.
Yeah, Broderick and Birdway.
Broderick and Birdway.
Everyone's two favorite streets in the city we live in.
Broderick and Birdway,
North Dakota.
Those do not exist.
Broderick and Birdway.
No.
Broad Dick and Birdway.
Uh-huh. Broad Dick.
Yeah.
That'd be a name to have to live up to, wouldn't it?
I mean,
hi, I'm Dan Broaddick.
Well, so here's the thing about being called Broad Dick, right?
Yeah, sure.
Is that, I mean, people assume that it also has some length to it. You might just have a chode.
Sure.
And people called you
manhole cover.
Yeah, people called you Broad Dick.
Sure.
To be polite about it.
Sure. Instead
of calling you Danny Chode or something. now you're Daniel Broad Dick.
Sure. And your real first name is Girth.
Girth Broad Dick. Yeah. But I don't know who Birdway is.
No, Birdway.
That sounds like a band.
But it could be a Birdway. It'd be
it's Gerard Way's brother.
Bird.
Yeah, Bird. But it's been a weird day for me.
It has been a weird day.
It's always a weird day, but I feel like that's just our jobs and our lives.
But it's been a divergently weird day. I mean, it's normally weird, and it was weird.
I don't know if it was particularly weird, though.
It just felt a different kind of weird.
Maybe. I don't know. We're still settling into being in an office again and seeing other people all the time for 8 hours out of the day. So things have been weird for a little while.
I'm still not entirely comfortable with it.
Well, we'll get back to it. Things will feel normal again at some point. But how have you been?
I'm okay. I'm still liking my new car. I'm driving it,
How's the smell? Does it still smell like a new car?
No, it didn't smell like a new car to begin with.
Okay.
It smelled like a spray they sprayed in there to make it smell like a new car, but it was clearly a spray they sprayed because it's a 5-year-old car.
Yeah.
It's new to me, not
I suppose.
Not a new car.
I feel like my car had a good new car smell, even though it wasn't new when we got it. It was 4 years old when we got it, but that might be because the people who had it before hardly drove it. It was like 4 years old and had like 10,000 miles, if that.
Really?
When we got it.
Nice.
It was pretty good price for that mileage.
Sure.
But
you put some miles on it since, though.
I have, but considering it's an 11-year-old car, only having...
To 2005?
It's a 2000...
Oh.
11 years ago was 2010, OJ. You didn't know me.
Yeah.
In 2015.
No, I did
not. Or 2016. When you think apparently it is. You think it's 2016 apparently.
Yeah.
You're going all the way back to the pre-Trump era. You think Barack Obama is still the president. You've just blanked on an entire presidency, which honestly I'm envious of. So
Yeah.
But no, it's a 2010 and it's got like 65,000 miles on it, I think.
Which is still very good.
That's pretty good for considering its age, and it's never had any major problems. I've never had any major work done on it,
and nothing can go wrong.
Yeah, nothing can go wrong. Now that I say that,
it's all smooth sailing from here.
The biggest thing that's ever happened to it is a battery change. I had to get the battery changed last year.
Right. Did I drive you around for that one, or was that?
No, I think you gave me gave me a bunch of jumps.
Yeah.
In like the week leading up to me just going to buy a new battery.
I feel like I was hiding in your parking lot with a baseball bat.
Basically. You were hiding in my parking lot with your fucking battery charger.
Yeah, that's
what you were. You might as well have just stayed here for that week. The amount of times I needed to ask for you, because you've got a fucking nice jump pack.
I do. It's one of those things. I found that the older I get, the more I'm like, I'm not buying any more cheap shit ever again. Oh, I could save money. I don't want it. If you save money, it's going to cost you money because you're buying cheap shit. Yeah. And other stuff's going to break, and you have to go buy another one of these things. And
it's that Discworld thing where they were talking about the difference between a poor man's boots and a rich man's boots. Like a poor man's boots will last them for like a year at most before they have to go and buy another pair of boots, where a rich man's boots are more expensive, but they will last for years and years and years.
Sure.
But that's just a random thing I know about Discworld, which is a series I've not read, to my shame.
Yeah, that man's a genius.
It's just
he was. He's no longer with us.
The thing about like Discworld is it's such an incredibly massive series. Not that any of it is particularly like dense as far as trying to read it, because it's all fun Terry Pratchett stuff.
Sure,
but
everything he wrote is fun.
It's not like trying to read fucking War and Peace or anything, or the Silmarillion.
It's just lengthy.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of it.
It's not girthy. It's just lengthy.
Yes. But I mean, that's the ethos of like, I'm not buying cheap shit.
Right.
Is how I felt when I bought a new battery. It's just like, what's the most expensive battery you can give me for this car? Like, what's the best battery you have that will fit my car? And it's like, it's this one. You know, it's like $190. I'm
sure.
Like, fucking put that shit in.
It's worth it.
I don't want to come back here for a long time.
I don't want to see your dumb face ever again.
Yeah. The dude was really cool too. Like, went to the AutoZone on North Hill, and it's just I felt it looked like a 17-year-old. But
why'd you go all the way to North Hill?
Because I wanted to go to the AutoZone on South Hill, but I think it was like closed or some shit. Or no, there was like only one guy working there, and so he couldn't he couldn't help me or install the battery or anything. Like, there were other people, and he's just like, you can go.
I suppose they'll install them at AutoZone, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could have gone to O'Reilly's over here, but
yeah, I just went to the North one, and there's a couple of people there. There's like a 17-year-old dude that probably knows more about cars than
you'll ever know.
like 3 times as much about cars than I will ever know.
Wow. So he knows 3 things about cars.
That's really cool. Knows 3 things. I know one thing about cars. They need gas, and that's it. I watched my dad patch my tire a couple weeks ago.
Really?
That was cool. I'd never seen anyone like patch a tire before. And it's weird to me, like how that actually works, how tire patches work, where it's just like, it's this little thing that's covered in like glue. And then you find out, okay, there's a nail, you pull the nail out, then you get a drill, and you make the hole bigger.
Yeah.
And then you put the patch in, and my dad lubed it up with some silicone, basically.
Sure.
And then he put the patch in. You have a little tool. You twist a little tool that cuts the patch in half, and then you take it out, and it just works. And there's a lot of air pressure inside there, and this little thing that's just covered in glue.
Yep.
Just works fine.
Is that little thing covered in glue the only thing keeping your car from crashing to the ground?
Yeah. And my dad was just like, I've never had one of these fail. It's like, I've patched how many goddamn tires, never had one of these fail. So it's like, yeah, no, I'm confident in that. But I didn't know that's how that worked.
Yeah.
But I don't know much about cars. I'm not a very handy person.
I used to, in high school, it was my junior year. I guess my senior year too. I hung up with these 2 dudes, that were total motorheads. They were motorheads, and they used to mock me.
But they
all
weren't
the time.
Lemmy fans.
Well,
maybe,
yeah.
Okay,
to some extent,
they liked some Motorhead.
They were more kind of
they were gearheads.
They were gearheads.
Okay.
They were they were like really into Kiss.
Okay, so it's classic rock.
Yeah, they had mullets and drove pickups.
All right.
We drunk Jack Daniels on back roads, and
well, that sounds like some very Lemmy shit. Maybe not the back roads thing,
but the Jack
Daniels for sure. Yeah, I don't know if anyone in my class was really super into cars. Nobody, like, there were people who knew more about cars than I did, but no one was like a big gearhead or anything. As far as I can remember.
And you lived in a relatively rural area.
Yeah, it's just a lot of the guys in my class were just pretty normal, average. Nobody. I was nerdy, but nobody in my class was like super like anti-nerd or anything. I guess there were a couple kids that lived out in the country that weren't, but like, a bunch of my friends that were athletes were also, played a ton of video games and were fairly nerdy people. But I think that's the thing with my generation and younger and a few years older than me too, is like nerd shit is just popular.
It was not popular when I was.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I remember I came out of school one day to see the football team carrying my automobile through a field.
Oh my God.
There's my car's way fuck over there. Thanks, guys. This is what I get for driving a Chevy Vega, which is basically made out of Reynolds wrap. Yeah.
This wasn't a Pinto.
No, a Pinto actually had like real metal.
Yeah,
comprising an but it literally had an aluminum block engine.
Well, that's what made the sparks that caused them to explode. It's because it was real metal.
Yeah.
That's I don't know why I know that. For a person of my age should probably not know that Pintos used to explode.
They did, yeah. But it was well before you were born.
I do know that.
Your parents were like in their 20s when that was a thing.
Yeah, probably. But speaking of nerd shit, over the weekend I got together with some friends and we played a game called The Quiet Year. In preparation for a D&D campaign, which I had suggested to them because that's what they're currently doing on the Adventure Zone, and some other people have done that as well as a way to do a collaborative world building to make like a region around a singular town. It's not really super good to build like a whole universe, but it can be good as like a starting point for just sort of a not super serious campaign.
Sure.
And so we made a town called Crystal Cove, not Crystal Cove, Crescent Cove.
Crescent Cove.
Because there's...
What's Crystal Cove? That sounds
Crystal
familiar.
Cove is that Angela Lansbury, Murder, She Wrote? Is that where that takes place?
No, that's Cabot Cove.
That's Cabot Cove. Crystal Cove is something else.
I feel like that's something from Christopher Moore, maybe. No, I don't know. Anyway.
But... we made a town called Crescent Cove, and there is a shaft of moonlight that comes down on this island in the middle of the cove, and so they build a temple to the goddess of the moon.
Sure.
We made a ton of jokes about the shaft.
Yeah, it's one bad motherfucker.
Not that, just like penis jokes.
Oh, okay, all right.
Penis jokes about the shaft, and so there ended up. Like part of the thing about playing The Quiet Year is there's an element of randomness to it. I bought a deck of cards to play it.
Sure.
Because I didn't buy the actual game because it would have had to ship here in under a week. But you
can use standard playing cards.
Yeah, you can use standard playing cards and a PDF, which I did purchase. And you draw a card and it presents you with a situation. Something usually it's a or choice, so this thing happens or this thing happens, and it'll be something like a stranger shows up in town with a dire warning. What do they say? Or something afoul is going on.
Oh no!
In a nearby forest. What is it? Like you have choices to make and figure out how the community reacts to them on your turn, and you also get to take an action on your turn that involves starting a project, starting a discussion, or discovering something new in the area. As ways to, like, starting a project is ways to build up your community and make sure your community has supplies. So it's doing things like, we need to build a water tower, to increase our supply of clean water. And there aren't any like meters or metrics for success. Most of the things in the game are fairly vague. But it'll be things like, build a water tower. How long does that take? Oh, about 6 weeks. And so you have a dice. You have a die, a D6. The longest that you are supposed to make projects is 6 weeks.
Right.
And so every turn is a week. And you get to the next turn, you turn the dice down to the next, the corresponding week.
Gotcha.
And then there's discover something new, which helps you fill out the area around the town. And discover like new resources, like, I find a abandoned mine and there's a bunch of mining equipment in it and it looks like there's iron.
Uranium.
Cool. Yeah. So you can do stuff like that. And it took us about 3 hours to play all the way through the game. And there's 4 seasons throughout this year. And then at the end, there's an event that's called, that in the game is referred to as the Frost Shepherds Arrive. And at any point in winter, if you draw the King of Spades, the game is over. The Frost Shepherds arrive, the game is over, and you get to discuss what that means for your community.
Okay.
And so we came up with a couple ideas related to things that had happened. Someone got a card where they decided that there was a portal to the Feywild not far from the town.
Nice.
And one of our interpretations of the Frost Shepherds, we came up with a couple of things as like hooks for possible storylines in the game. One of them is that a representative of the Wild Hunt showed up and basically said, like, the next time that we show up, you either, pay homage to us or we will destroy you.
Nice.
And then someone else said that there was a divine emissary that said that like this area was going to become a battlefield at some point between different gods. And then I did something far more nebulous, which was that other like civilizations had taken notice of this town and whatever that meant going forward of like trade or possible conflict. And we had set up a whole bunch of other mysteries. You don't play characters in the game, but you can make characters and figures. And one of them that we came up with, his name was Microdosing Mitch, who was introduced. We got a card that said, an old man reveals he has committed some atrocity. What is it? And how does the community react? And the person who got this card came up with somebody that was called Microdosing Mitch. And he was a guy who would wander around in the woods and pick mushrooms and, not knowing what they were, would just drop them in people's stew to see what happened. And so he killed a lot of people that way. And so they exiled him to the swamp, a place
where there's no
mushrooms or anything like that. And so we started getting a whole bunch of cards where referring to like weird, ominous shit happening outside of town. And most of it happened in the swamp. And I got a card that was like, someone tries to take over the town. And I was like, fucking Microdosing Mitch comes out of the swamp and reveals he's like a powerful Circle of Spores druid. And he like makes a bunch of crazy demands. And now the community has to do something about him. And so they formed like a militia to take him down. But things kind of were left sort of open-ended, opportunities for Mitch to become a recurring villain in the game that we're playing, which is a century after this year that we played in the Quiet Year. But it was neat. There was also mermaids. There was a cool like grotto, a cave with like this very pretty waterfall in it. And mermaids lived in there, and also the mermaids trained spiders.
Sure,
but they weren't like aquatic spiders. They were regular spiders that we basically said they were giant spiders that had like they had like wide like paddles on the end of their feet, so they didn't break surface tension.
So they're like water striders, kind of.
Yeah, and then they could also climb up wall and do regular spider stuff. And we became allies with the mermaids, and then the mermaids lent the trained spiders to help take down Microdosing Mitch.
Sure.
And so now like spiders are sort of a kind of like giant spiders are just a thing that people are used to in Crescent Cove.
They never roll up a newspaper. It's just
this is like having a spider that's the size of like a Doberman is just like that's Rex.
That's Rex.
My pet giant spider. But it's gonna be wild. I might have mentioned that the idea I put forth that everyone seemed to like is that we are co-owners of a tavern.
Okay.
Except a couple of us have decided that we are actually just squatting in the tavern that is about to be bought. But we're all going to run a tavern together, basically. Sure. And it's this, dilapidated, like Patty's Pub from It's Always Sunny style tavern. At least as we start the game, it's going to be like basically nearly condemned.
Nice.
And we're going to fix it up as we go along and
you're not going to the wrecking ball. You're not going to build it back from the ground up.
We're going to try and fix it. Basically, it's not like that bad necessarily, but it's like a real fixer upper basically. And so part of the impetus for adventuring, other than we live in Cabot Cove, God damn it. We live in Crescent Cove and there's all kinds of crazy shit all around us.
Cove.
Crystal Cove. Did I say it again?
You said Crescent Cove.
It is Crescent Cove. Crystal Cove was the wrong one.
Oh, okay.
It's Crescent Cove because of the moon. Because of the moon shaft.
Right.
Because of the shaft.
Of the moon shaft.
Part of the impetus for adventuring is paying for renovations to the bar.
At the bottom of this moon shaft is like a sack of things.
No, there's a temple.
There's a temple.
On that same island, there is also a wizard's a magic conservatory.
Nice.
Where arcane spellcasters are trained. But anyway. Do we want to talk about Invincible now that you watched it?
I was wondering when we were going to get to that. I was hoping we were going to get to that.
Yeah, so you watched all of Invincible over the weekend, and spoiler alerts for Invincible. If you've not watched Invincible, I think we're just
watch it and then come back.
Yeah, it's 8 episodes. You can take a break,
knock it down in a day.
But holy shit,
yeah.
So if you have watched Invincible, or if you don't care, so eventually the story. Last week, I believe I mentioned how it's a young man, Mark Grayson, 17 years old. His dad's the most powerful superhero in the world. He gets his superpowers, and his dad starts training him to become a superhero, just like him.
Just like dear old dad.
Well, not quite, because dear old dad is not a benevolent superhero that has come to Earth to protect it. He is actually a scout for a conquering empire.
But you don't find this out till near the end.
Yeah, but you do know at the end of episode 1 that he murdered what is essentially the entire Justice League.
Yeah.
And you don't know why.
Right.
The end of episode 1 is him brutally murdering the greatest heroes that Earth had to offer.
Right. Except
for him. And like up till that point, it's kind of like, oh, this is fine. This is interesting, but it's I don't know what, everyone's talking about for why this is so good. And then you get to the very end and Omni-Man brutally murders all of these people. And you're like, holy shit, what the fuck?
Which I believe is what I texted you at the end of the first episode.
You're just like, what the fuck? It's like, what you said, I believe, was I didn't really understand why this was a mature series until that last couple minutes. But in the last episode, like Omni-Man throughout the series is becoming more and more paranoid that people are going to find out what he did and that he's going to have to take more drastic action to basically conquer
Which
Earth.
Ultimately, he kind of does.
He does. Yeah. He goes full mask off in the last episode.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't prevent himself from murdering one of the Guardians of the Globe. Was brought back to life. His name is literally the Immortal. All you have to do is put his body back together and he'll heal up and come back to life. And he immediately comes back to life and makes a beeline for Omni-Man to try and murder him.
Right.
And everyone is seeing this on TV because Omni-Man's having a huge battle with this kaiju that was sent after him by the government agency that oversees superheroes, because they know what he did and they're trying to stop him and prevent him from getting to his son. And Omni-Man murders this other superhero who was supposedly dead, and it was like, you know, a beloved figure who was literally Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
The Immortal was actually Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
And not that people know that necessarily, but that is a truth about the universe of Invincible, is that one of Earth's greatest superheroes was actually Abraham Lincoln.
He was shot in the head.
And came back to life eventually.
Because he's immortal.
But so they see him, Omni-Man, murder him on TV again.
Right.
And everyone knows, oh, shit, that's not good. And then Omni-Man spends about a half hour brutalizing his own son.
And thousands of other people.
Utilizing Mark's body as a way to basically kill people in front of him, trying to prove a point to Mark that humans are pointless, are weak insects that deserve to be conquered. And Mark should basically just give up. Which he doesn't, and Omni-Man nearly kills him before he realizes what he's actually doing, which is nearly beating his son to death, and he flies off into space with tears streaming out of his eyes.
After that one line.
And everyone's seen the memes at this point from the end of that fight where Omni-Man goes on a rant.
Right.
But he's basically, you know, he had told Mark that they're functionally immortal. The older that Viltrumites get, the slower they age.
Right.
And that Mark is going to live to be thousands of years old, and everything that he knows and loves on Earth is going to fade away and die. And that, you know, it's pointless to try and save humans because they're going to die anyway. And so he goes, in 500 years, what will you have, Mark? And Mark, who is almost dead, just a bloody pulp.
He looks like hamburger.
Squeezes out, I'd still have you, Dad. And that destroys Omni-Man and also destroys the viewer.
Right.
It's an incredibly powerful armor-piercing line to not quite punctuate that episode, because it's still there's plenty of shots of Mark's recovery from that fight, but it's, God, what a show. What a show.
What a show indeed.
Fantastic stuff. So let's talk about the album here. So it's Beg to Differ by Prong.
Indeed.
So Prong is I don't know exactly how to classify them.
Sort of maybe, I mean, they're definitely some form of metal.
It's
but with like hardcore leanings, and
they were listed as crossover thrash and some of their earliest stuff.
Yeah, and this is their first major label. This is a major label debut.
Yeah, this was on Epic.
Yeah, this is their third album,
and it's hard to classify it. It's almost a little proggy in some parts. The drum beat is anyway. Right. The rest of the guitar doesn't really fit in with what you would consider progressive metal, generally speaking, especially not in 1990. But
no, I mean, at this time, them and another band called Helmet were the only two bands that were doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, and this was you can definitely hear the roots of like alternative metal in here.
But there was no thing alternative metal.
Yeah,
in 1990.
it was not a thing yet.
Yeah,
it would be not long after this,
right.
But you can definitely hear the roots of that. But a lot of it is still pretty thrashy, or just kind of it's in a weird place.
It is
musically, and also like the singing is kind of grunted. Almost. It's not really sung, but it's not growled either. It's just kind of a rough sort of yell, but it's also not like, when I think of like yelled vocals, I think of Tom Araya, but it's not of the same intensity of that either. It's a bit understated. This album's in a weird nexus of a lot of things,
and this influenced a lot of stuff that followed. I mean,
yes, I had never heard of this band.
Yeah.
But apparently they were pretty well known at the time. They're still a thing. They took a pretty long hiatus, but
they did. They put out an album here recently.
They got back together in 2007. The list of former members of this band is It would satisfy Chuck Schuldiner, I think.
Yeah, it's Tommy Victor and I don't know.
Yeah, a whole bunch of people that don't perform with them anymore. And I have to wonder if it is kind of a sort of death situation where it's like, this is Tommy's band and he's gathering some people to work on this one album and then they'll leave. I guess I didn't do too much reading as far as why people leave and you know, if they're leaving because he's hard to work with or if they're just leaving because they want to go do other things. Or
I imagine column A, column B is what we're looking at here. I mean, he's very much in control of the project.
Yeah. And people said the same about Chuck Schuldiner too, that he could be pretty hard to work with at times.
Well, he was in very control of his project. Yeah. And even when his control was denied.
Funny. You are funny, man. But on this album, anyways, we've got on guitar and vocals, Tommy Victor, on bass, Mike Kirkland, and on drums, Ted Parsons. This is how did this album enter into your sphere?
I was at my friend Scott's house. I have a friend named Scott. He's unlike anybody I've ever met in my entire life.
Okay.
He basically lives alone in the middle of a reservation in Montana now. And occasionally I'll see my phone ring and I'll be like, well, I don't have 2 hours to listen to him speak right now. So maybe I'll call him back later. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he's just one of those guys who just has a wealth of knowledge and no ability to control it.
Yeah. I do that to some of my out of town friends as well.
You do that to some of your in town friends as well, Kale.
I do, in town. That's true. But the difference is I don't call my in town friends on the cell phone.
Right.
Generally speaking, I wait till I see you in person to talk your ear off for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But like I'll, you know, if I get a phone call from, you know, some of my friends that live in Fargo,
sure,
I will talk about just random ass shit for 45 minutes, even though somewhere in the back of my head, I know that they probably would like to be doing something else.
Just know that at some point, if you do that, that you are on speakerphone, you're on a table, and they're preparing dinner.
Yeah. I think part of it is I have all kinds of nerdy shit and, you know, a select couple of people that I can talk to about these things. And the other part of it is that I've, you know, born and raised and have spent nearly my entire life in North Dakota. And we are a people who do not know when conversations are supposed to end.
Yeah, I know. Conversations end 6 times. As soon as the party is over, then the party's over again in the entryway, then the party's over again on the porch, then the party's over again
in the driveway. Yeah, it can be really, really frustrating at times when you are. I feel like so many times everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone knows that everyone wanted this conversation to be done 40 minutes ago.
Yeah, nobody's clueless about that.
Everybody is on the same page about that, and yet it continues. And I do not know why that is.
I don't know. I mean, it would be very, very easy to go, I got to get home, my kids, my dogs, and my cat. And, oh, look, I'm on fire.
I have obligations. Go. Goodbye.
Yeah. And no one would think the worst of you.
Yeah. But nobody does that.
No, they don't.
Nobody does it. The closest thing that I do is I often just end up doing the so-called Irish goodbye.
Yeah.
Which is, don't even say anything to anyone. Just leave. And I feel like I have the right group of friends where nobody cares about that.
Right.
It's just like, where did Kale go? Oh, he just left.
Oh, right.
Like, no, of course he did. And usually I will make an effort to, like, oftentimes if we're at a bar or something like that, and I have the ability to leave of my own accord.
Yeah.
If I haven't been driven there by someone else. You know, if someone's like up dancing or talking to someone else or doing whatever, I will grab them and be like, I'm going to go. Bye. This was fun. And leave it at that.
Sure.
And like, I will say goodbye, but I won't make it like, you have to come and walk out to the parking lot with me. And then we'll say, it's like, no, it's like, I'm leaving later.
Gotta go.
I don't want to be here anymore. It's never I gotta go. It's I don't want to be in this place anymore.
I'm sick of this room and everyone in it.
I'm gonna leave now. This place is too loud.
Right.
And the drinks are not cheap enough.
You know what's really fun though? Is if you're in the middle of a party and you can't think of a reason to leave and you're a little too drunk or whatnot, just yell the word diarrhea really loud. No one will question your exit. Yeah.
Well, see, I what came to my mind is what I should do is go up to whoever I need to say goodbye to.
Yeah.
And just say to them with completely dead eyes, I have to go return some videotapes.
And not to the video store.
Well, that's from American Psycho.
Oh yeah,
that was always the excuse
I forgot
he
about
would give anytime he had to leave.
I haven't seen that
in the middle of something. Is he would say he had to go and return some videotapes when really he was going to go to murder somebody.
You know, it's funny back when I was in my 20s, I had a very tight knit group of friends, and my way of sneaking out early was to preemptively sneak out early.
Okay.
They said, we're throwing a party. Oh, you gonna be there? Yeah.
And just not go. Yeah.
Like I can't.
See, my secret was my secret way of getting out of things was even more subtle than that, and it was to not get invited in the first place.
Oh, sure. That's a talent, though.
That made it very easy to leave parties, especially in high school.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like the whole class is here. Yep, all of us.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's let the party start.
I didn't get invited to parties mostly because my classmates simply assumed that I didn't want to come, and they were not completely wrong.
No, yeah.
But I'm of the introvert that appreciates getting invites to things, even if I don't have.
I hear you.
The intention to go, because it's a subtle reminder that like, oh yeah, people love you.
Yeah,
people care about you, and want you to have fun with them and be around. But they're also, they probably send that text with the understanding that he probably isn't going to come, but who cares? I mean, it's okay. They wouldn't say who cares, but they're just like, but that's all right. He's going to do what he wants to do. That's fine.
It'd be funny if one of these nights you got invited to the party, everybody knew you weren't going to be there, and you showed up anyway. And you open the door, and everybody goes, "Oh, you shitting me?
God damn it! Oh, fuck! Shit!
Never mind.
I guess we're done. We were going to do all kinds of cool shit, but now he's here.
God damn it, Kale!
He ruined everything, and that's when I just sit down on the floor and just let it all out.
You're Jerry from Parks and Rec.
See, at least Jerry gets to go home to a smoking hot wife.
Yeah.
Who loves him unconditionally. Because
you got a beautiful cat.
Jesus, that man has the largest penis I've ever seen. That's one of my favorite one-off lines from Parks and Rec. Yeah. It's just like, oh, that's part of why Jerry has such a strangely blessed home life. But we were talking about an album. So Beg to Differ
Prong.
by Prong.
I love this album.
The slap?
Yeah, sometimes.
It's a light slap. It's
a light
not,
slap.
It's not. Doesn't slap all the time.
No.
But it's also not in the sense. Oftentimes when we say something doesn't slap, it's usually because we've listened to like a doom metal album. Or
right.
Something. This is a different kind of like of not slapping, in the sense that it's not always the most energetic or entertaining form of metal all the time. Mm-hmm. At least for me, I'm speaking subjectively.
Yeah.
For me,
like this is when I pull out every now and then, regardless of whether or not we're doing a podcast on it. I mean, in fact, I just listened to this a few weeks ago.
And that's probably why we're talking about it.
Yeah, so let's talk about Prong.
Let's talk about this.
This isn't even considered their best album. This was my intro.
What is considered their best album?
I think Cleansing is considered their best album.
Was that before or after?
That's the album after this, or is it 2 albums after this?
Okay.
Yeah. But
when alternative metal was a thing,
and they actually had a hit on that album.
I was surprised to learn that some songs on this album got a lot of
MTV
play on Headbangers Ball and stuff, and these were I had never heard of these guys, and yet this was a fairly popular band.
It was, and one of the songs was maybe the title track, maybe not. That it was actually a slate that MTV had that played and
going into or out of ads. I can't remember which. I do know I read that that it was they would play it as a buffer, essentially.
Prong.
Which I think that's interesting. Right. Adult Swim does shit like that now. Adult Swim plays more music in music videos than fucking MTV does. I mean, but the joke about the complaint that MTV doesn't play music videos is old. It has been around longer than the period. Than the period of time when MTV played music videos.
Oh, sure. Oh, way longer.
Yeah,
way longer.
But yeah, like adults, especially metal stuff. Adult Swim has a weird affinity for extreme metal, and I don't know if that has its genesis with Metalocalypse or if that's always just been a thing. I feel like the people who work at and with Adult Swim, I feel like there's a lot of metalheads in that area. Because metalheads are weirdos, and and we like and make weird things. And that's Adult Swim is a bunch of weird shit. There's a program called Fish Center Live, where you have a band performing in front of a green screen, and the green screen is like
an aquarium or something.
Yeah, is an aquarium in the Adult Swim office, with fish floating around behind them, and there's a performance. Yes, the band Fish. And sometimes it's real big fish.
Wow. It's a skaquarium.
There's an episode of Fish Center Live where fucking dying fetus is performing.
That's great.
It's amazing. That's a band that I've never really gotten super into. I think they're one of their most recent albums was pretty good. But generally speaking, their style of death metal is not super my thing. But I think they're fine. I think they're a fine death metal band.
You know what I actually did? It was the last night or the night before, I don't remember. I actually opened up my Amazon Music app and I went to the Mayhem channel.
Oh boy. Let's see what suggestions were there.
It's just basically radio.
Yeah.
They just played over and over different
black metal songs. That's like if you like Mayhem, you'll probably like this.
Here's like 6 bands I've never heard of. But
yeah. See, it's such a minefield because I ventured into a minefield of sorts the other day, which is there is a sort of a micro genre or maybe a movement in black metal that's RABM. So there's NSBM, which is National Socialist Black Metal. And then there's RABM, which is Red and Anarchist Black Metal. Black metal specifically for
communists or
communist anarchists or just left-leaning black metal bands that want to be very clear that they are not fucking Nazis.
We're middle of the road, but we're way left of those guys.
Yeah, but part of that, the subreddit was basically discussions on like what bands were were right-wing nutcases and what bands were sketchy and people that were willing to work with sketchy bands or sketchy artists. And it's like, it's such a rabbit hole, and it's so difficult to find anyone who's free of sin, so to speak, as far as like has never worked with anyone that's sketchy or never collaborated with anyone else that's sketchy. Because part of the thing is like, you've got, the biggest second wave black metal band ever, Mayhem, is very sketchy as fuck.
Yeah, definitely sketchy as fuck. I mean,
but you also have to acknowledge that that band has an influence on every black metal band that came after it. And so it's like, is Sun, not that Sun's a black metal band, but it's like Sun. I saw Sun on a list of like sketchy bands or people that were willing to work with sketchy bands, and Sun was on there because they've worked with Attila.
Yeah, of course,
because Attila provided vocals for them for a while. And it's like that gets into such a level of
Attila's vocals are so weird.
Yeah, he's got a weird style to it, but like that gets into such a finicky area of you know, I'm generally not a person that can separate art from artist, but there is a line there where it's like, if this person's not if this person is not a overt shithead, and is also not using their music to promote those ideals, even if that they've maybe said like one sketchy thing in the past, I'm willing to look past that.
Yeah.
Everything there, but there's a line somewhere there.
Right.
It's you know.
I remember at one point, you know, because you have your bands that are not metal that you really, really like. Yeah. And for a while, I was kind of listening to the Foo Fighters, you know, every now and then.
Yeah.
So like palate cleanser or whatever. And
Foo Fighters are a fun band.
And then they did that whole thing with AIDS denial.
Oh yeah. Well, also, isn't Mark Grohl like a Scientologist?
Dave Grohl?
Dave Grohl? Who the fuck is Mark Grohl? But yeah, Dave Grohl is a Scientologist.
Is he really?
Or something like that. I don't know. He's into something weird, I think. Other than that, he seems like a very nice person.
Yeah.
But like there was some weird stuff. Yeah, Foo Fighters have done some questionable things. And
sure.
It's like, why would you?
What are you doing? Stop.
As high profile people, why are you outing yourselves as assholes in this way?
Stop.
And there's a whole conversation to be had about like, okay, wouldn't you rather know if someone was secretly a shithead?
No, you know what? I
don't know.
I really, you know why? Because I think out of 7.5 billion people, secretly 7.5 billion of them are shitheads.
I suppose.
I mean, everybody has something.
I guess.
Nobody is perfect, and I think we're sort of in a culture now where it's sort of getting
too
away from us.
Polarized.
Yeah, it's kind of getting away from us, where, you know, everybody has a moment where they did something terrible, and now we're not going to listen to them or like them forever because we know about it because it's on the internet forever.
Well, and there's a difference between saying something, and it's an important thing to acknowledge. There's a difference between saying something stupid 10 years ago and acknowledging that you were a different person back then, and now you've changed, and you know you're different. And there is also sometimes the people where it's like, did you do this shitty thing back then? Yeah, and I don't regret it, and I'm still a piece of shit.
Yeah, so
fuck you. Like, there's a difference between those two things.
Yeah.
And it's you know, it's important to acknowledge that if someone does that, then no, I'm not gonna. But if someone's like, yeah, I've changed, and here's evidence of how I've changed as a person, then I'm usually cool with that.
I think a problem that it's causing maybe a little bit now is that it's diluting the real baddies. I mean,
for sure. Well, because the real baddies don't feel shame.
The real bad, they don't feel shame. They don't
give a shit.
Yeah.
The real assholes and the real evil people cannot be made to be ashamed.
Oh, man, I said something that sounded kind of racist 5 years ago, and I'm sorry, I'm changed. I'm not that guy anymore. And that's guy's on the same page as the guy who who's a senator and paid underage girls to come over state lines for sex.
Yeah,
I mean, we're now putting those guys in the same bucket.
Same boat.
Yeah, that's not right.
It's speaking of things getting away from us, that tangent. That tangent did.
Sure.
But, you know, it's important conversation to have.
Sure.
When you're talking about any kind of art, I guess. But anyway. Prong.
So still together. You know, Tommy's in his mid-50s now, I think.
I don't know.
I want to say.
This album I looked at a couple different reviews, averaged about 85-ish. Mm-hmm. Lines up with albums that are generally well received and well remembered and well liked by people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite song?
I like the title track a lot. It's really good. It's one that sticks in my head, I think, the most when I think about it. Also, what's the opening track title again? I can't brain right now.
It is For Dear Life.
Yeah, For Dear Life. Holding up for dear life. Dear life.
I also think that is a good track. My favorite I wrote down is Your Fear. Mm-hmm. Because it's very moody. It's one of their slower ones. Mm-hmm. It's also one of the more melodic tracks on here, which I enjoyed. I liked I liked the inclusion of melody on that track. There was a couple tracks where it was like, there was like a short little, like a bridge or like a fill. There was like a fill on one track where it sounded like they were about to go into a really cool kind of like progressive melodic section.
And they go back.
Then it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I got really excited for no reason. But what medal are you bestowing upon this?
I mean,
like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca.
To be honest, I love this album, but it's still a silver album.
Yeah, I'm with you. Silver album. I didn't not enjoy this. But it's nothing. I had a little bit of trouble picking favorite tracks because I listened to this like twice, but nothing like really grabbed me. It really stuck out to me. So I silver. I think that's what we've got for it. So next week, I was having a lot of trouble figuring out like what the fuck do I want to listen to and talk about next week. And I couldn't think of anything. And I figured it's been such a long time since we've talked about this band. We haven't, I don't know what you're thinking. Okay, probably know what you're thinking of.
Okay.
It's been a very long time since we've talked about this band in particular. The last time I believe was episode 51 because there was another album of theirs. I was like, have we talked about this? I don't think so. And then I found out we had. But we're going to talk about All We Love, We Leave Behind by Converge.
Converge. I've never heard of them. Who are they?
I don't know. But came out in 2012. And it's one of their albums that I listened to. I didn't listen to it when it came out because I wasn't really into Converge when it came out. But like when I started getting into Converge, this was their newest album. And I listened to it a fair bit at that point. But since then, I haven't really gone back to it.
Really?
And I think it's time I give it another couple of listens here.
Where would you say it is in the pantheon of Converge albums? Where would you put this?
I'm not quite sure. That's why we're listening to it again.
All right.
So maybe I can answer that question next time.
What's your favorite Converge album?
My favorite Converge album is probably Jane Doe.
All right.
It's I think it has to be Jane Doe. But we'll talk more about all that sort of stuff next time. So till you hear from us next time, find us on Facebook or on Twitter, and we post episode links there if you want to listen to in browser. Otherwise, you can find our pages on the podcast app on your iOS device, or you can find us on the Podcast Source app if you have an Android like me. It's Libsyn's mobile service because that's who stores all of our data.
Yep.
So
those are the folks you pay.
Those are the folks I give money to store my data, to store my Android.
Right.
Anyway,
on your Android.
Store my Android to store. Anyway.
I love it when that happens.
I had a malfunction.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Your positronic brain was...
Yeah. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.
God. I had a mouthful of beer and they went, I gotta talk now. God damn it. See you later, folks.